it also occurs to me that because it's a state of being, how might one prepare for that? What are the steps that you have seen support coaches coming into that state of being, or creating that state of being for themselves?
It's doing your personal work. It really is. And when, because I'm one too, so I'm going to speak all right, in response to when I bump against a challenge in my coaching and who I'm being, noticing what my triggers and how I'm not self-managing them. I look within to see what needs to be cleared, what triggers me, and what will it take to get back to the basics of holding that space, of being curious, that work, doing that work. And that takes working with my own coach. It takes the personal growth study and the work that I do, whatever it is, meditation, learning to get quiet, taking courses that help me deepen my mastery with listening.
Yeah.
All of that, bottom line, it's the personal work.
Yeah.
And getting the support, to do the work.
And my hearing of that is that not only it's not just masterful coaching, because again, that sounds like there are skills and things we're supposed to do, but what I'm hearing from you is that it's a self-mastery journey.
Yes.
As well, of clearing or hearing what's coming up for us, as you say, self-management. And I think that's always the two things that I say often to my mentees is that you're kind of juggling several things at the same time, is holding that sacred space, being fully there and present for the client, but paying attention to say, is that my stuff or is that their stuff? And in that instant, coming back present, knowing that there may be something that's, as you say, triggered you, that, okay, I'm gonna look at that later. Right now, I'm here for this client. I'm coming back.
Well, and
or maybe even showing vulnerability to the client at that moment too, right?
So it's the competencies themselves that give us a framework. So we know about questioning, for example. And my challenge is I love to share my stories, and I get feedback consistently that my stories contribute. People hear messages for themselves in my sharing of my life experience and how I, responded to those. And I just love to hear myself talk. Right? So the fact that there's and you'll discover that as we go through this conversation. So the fact that there is a competency called powerful questioning and being curious, I then have a structure to support myself to, okay. And so taking on a practice like noticing when I want to share, I relate. You want to hear my story? And catch myself and practice that practice of catching myself and going, okay, Fran, notice, pause, ask the client a question. And notice how it calms me down when
your energy shifted completely.
Yeah. So it's the both and, Meg, which I think you pointed to a moment ago, is the structure and the art and the intentionality of self-management, self-awareness, and through that awareness, making a more powerful choice, a more empowering choice, in the moment, so it's managing all of that.
Yeah. And I know that there are a couple of things that are coming up. Thank you so much for this. It's stimulating a lot of things for me too, that one of the things I think that I learned early on from several of my coaches and mentors was to slow my pace. Because you know me well, and I'd love to I'm an expressive person as well. I'm an extroverted thinker. When I really am in that presence of creating that sacred space and I bring that being and intentionality that you talk about, I notice that I almost put myself on, those slow records, putting it really slow it down. And by doing so, what happens? It creates more space for the client, of course.
Yes.
And it gives me the moment, those nanoseconds for self-management, that I can breathe, and there's nothing wrong with leaving some space.
Oh, it's, well, at the masterful level, at the MCC level, if you will, we're as assessors, one of the things we're watching for is spaciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Spaciousness around the client's thinking, processing, speaking, and good use of silence, right?
Yeah. So if you slow it down, I think it gives more time for when those things, and pay much more attention to your physical reactions, the emotional reactions. So you can say, okay, is this something that I want to invite the client to explore? Is this something that I ask to share? Is this something I let go of and deal with later? Because there's that other bit of the competencies of non-attachment, not being attached.
Yes.
And so balancing, I think it is a balancing act. With practice, you get to that place where you mentioned a few moments ago, that unconscious competence.
Exactly.
And it becomes more of a habitual, so it is a state of being. Like I said, I put myself on that channel.
Yeah. And that requires trust in the process, trust in self. Well, you'll get a kick out of this. I know when I'm coaching, at least I believe, I sense that I'm coaching masterfully when I have this feeling of free falling. I am so out of my head. I'm not thinking at all, and the questioning and the responses are coming at that level of unconscious competence, and that feeling of free falling has a visual to it. You'll love this.
Yeah.
So what I see in my mind's eye, is Alice floating down the rabbit hole. Floating down, and I first had that experience with my one of my earliest. Laura Whitworth was my second coach. Henry House was my first coach.
Wow.
And Laura would start asking me questions right at the beginning, and it wasn't what I wanted to talk about in my coaching session. It wasn't what I brought. I would share a story about what had transpired in the interim, and she started coaching on my story, and I would feel myself falling down, and I would see floating down the rabbit hole, just like Alice. And my mind was going, but wait a minute, I didn't want to go here. And I was having this love-hate relationship with what was happening, because the questions she was asking me, I was loving what was opening up, but my mind was kicking in with, but I wanted to talk about something else. And what happened when I let go as the client was I got to what I wanted to accomplish. And the lesson I learned from that is all roads lead to transformation.
Wow.
It's all connected.
Yeah. So it wasn't that the questions that she was asking, she was doing what the company says of fully exploring, picking up on what you were saying, but again, allowing you to free fall. How interesting.
And I allowed myself to free fall because I was loving the nature of the questions. It was a different topic, but I got to where I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that from experience.
Well, you know it as the client, and I think that's so valuable to experience it as a client as well as to just feel that letting go as you talk about and by experiencing that, you as the client learn to trust the process of coaching.
Yes. Yes.
And you start to discover, oh my gosh, there's something inside of me that the brain didn't know about, but something that's bubbling to come out. That client wisdom that we're wanting to shine a light on.
Yeah.
Cool. So as a coach, when you're doing that, can you say a little bit more about that masterful feeling for you of that free fall and down the rabbit hole? Because what I think of is Alice and going down the rabbit hole, it was all new. She didn't have a clue where she was going. And
that's right. That's right.
You don't know. You don't. Where's your plan?
It comes back to allowing and trusting, and being curious. Alice was the epitome of curiosity, right?
Yes.
So being willing. Oh, here's the key. Okay, and this came through lots of personal growth work. I got that the more willing I am not to know, the more powerful my coaching became. Okay, and that came out of a transformational experience of being the expert growing up as a young, in elementary school, high school. I was a 4.0 student. Mm-hmm. And my peers would come to me to get help with math, science, whatever. And oh man, especially the boys, when they came to ask questions, I was eating it up like candy. I was getting attention.
Sure.
Right? And so I loved it. And I would have made a great consultant because in life, however, decades later, I discovered coaching. And what happened when I discovered the paradigm of coaching, which is being willing not to know and asking curious questions, what it did was it connected with my deeper essence. And I realized that was ego-based, that behavior. I was feeding my ego, which was needy. The little girl in me was so needy for attention. And so I was feeding my ego by telling my stories, getting the attention. When I got to coaching and connected with that deeper truth that I resonated with at my soul level, that was transformational for me. And the bottom line is be willing not to know, because this then gives me the ability to hold that sacred space with my client and have them be the star, have them. And then it was just so nourishing my soul to see them accessing their greatness and moving out to the front of the stage with the spotlight in them, and me moving back out of the spotlight to the back of the stage and experiencing this soulful, nourishing experience versus the ego.
Yeah.
So I really got that at a very deeply level. Now, for those folks who are listening to this, I get triggered.